Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are wrestling with one of the most intense, sort of multidisciplinary stacks of source material we've probably ever tackled here.
Yeah, this isn't just a simple review, is it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a really deep examination looking at the architecture of spiritual awakening itself. We're pulling threads from the Shogama Sutra, the Bible, Taoist classics, Kabbalah, and even the Bhagavad Gita.
That's right. And our goal today really is to move past just reading these things on the surface. We need to carefully interpret these foundational dialogues.
We're trying to dissect this concept of true spiritual awakening, Kai Wu, right? Opening to enlightenment.
Exactly. And that ultimate goal of returning to the true heart, Huigi Benshin, we're trying to synthesize all this wisdom to tackle their central question that just runs through everything.
Which is?
How do we actually break that spiritual seal, the Feng Yin, that seems to be placed on the soul?
And maybe even more importantly, what's the real difference between just knowing all this stuff intellectually, having the concepts in your head, versus actually living it, that life-changing transformation?
Because they're often worlds apart, aren't they?
Completely.
And we have to start right there, I think, with the biggest immediate hurdle, which is, well, language itself.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about return. In the West, especially if you're coming at it through common Bible translations, the word you hit is repentance.
Right, huigai. And here's where that careful interpretation that Zai Qiji do becomes so vital, because repentance immediately gets loaded with ideas of sin and punishment.
Guilt, penalty.
Yeah, it sets up this like legalistic framework almost. Like the journey back is about avoiding a penalty, not really about coming home. It creates a barrier right from the start.
But what's fascinating, truly fascinating, is when you dig back into the original language. The Greek word metanoia, it means something completely different. It's way deeper than just saying sorry or feeling guilty. It points to a fundamental change of mind or heart.
A total turnaround.
A total turnaround. A radical shift in how you see things, what you intend, where you're going. It's huge.
You know, that distinction feels critical. Because if my journey starts feeling weighed down by guilt, I'm already sort of fighting myself, right?
Right.
But if the starting point is this profound shift in perception, metanoia, then the motivation comes from an internal truth, not some external fear of getting smacked down.
And the sources really hammer this home using that classic parable, maybe the most universal one for spiritual return, the prodigal son.
Ah, yes. Longzi too.
Exactly. And that story just sidesteps all the legalistic stuff and gets straight to the heart of metanoia. The key takeaway isn't punishment. He doesn't get punished at all. He gets a party.
He gets celebrated, yeah.
The core is that moment when the sun wakes up.
He goes from being totally lost, confused Hanku to suddenly seeing clearly. Xingwu.
Precisely. He's starving out there with the pigs, and suddenly it hits him, wait a second, my father's servants, even the lowest ones, eat better than this. I have to go back.
The desire for home, realizing who he actually is or belongs to.
Yes. It's the recognition of his true nature, his foolishness, but driven by the pull of home. It's an internal paradigm shift, pure and simple, not fear of judgment.
So it doesn't really matter if we're talking about the Buddhist goal of, leaving suffering, or the Taoist idea of returning to simplicity, or the Christian concept of reconciliation.
They're all pointing to the same thing.
This same internal homecoming journey.
Yeah.
Shifting from being completely muddled to being absolutely clear, just, described using different cultural maps.
Same destination, different maps. Exactly. And we need that foundation before we can really tackle the next big puzzle.
Which is, if the goal is just this change of heart, this coming home, why is it so hard? Why do so many people seem to know this but just fail to make the shift?
And that brings us right to that paradox you see everywhere in these texts. The knowing but intentional offender. Mingji Gu Fan.
Okay, unpack that.
Yeah.
Knowing but intentional.
This is where spiritual knowledge really separates itself from just, say, academic or technical know-how. Look at the world around us.
Okay.
A corrupt official, they know the risks, they know prison is a possibility, a dishonest business person, they know getting exposed in the media could ruin them.
Right, it's not like they're ignorant of the consequences. They're often very smart people.
Exactly. The issue isn't a lack of information. They have the knowledge, but they go ahead and do it anyway.
So it's not a knowledge problem. It's something deeper, like a spiritual stupor, you called it.
That's a good way to put it. They're choosing to play with fire, even when they know it burns, even when they've seen others get burned. Why?
Why indeed?
Well, this state, Mingji Gu Fan, it's pretty much the definition of avidya.
which gets translated as ignorance, but you're saying that's not quite right.
It's more like spiritual blindness or maybe unknowing. It's
Yeah.
like the person is deeply asleep, lost in this dream. They've woven themselves out of desire, fear, pride, doubt. Tanshen Chimanyi.
The classic poisons.
Right. They've completely identified with the illusion, the fake self, the ego that's built on external stuff, wealth, power, status, whatever it is.
And when you're totally bought into that dream, you act according to the dream's logic, even if your rational brain is screaming, this is crazy, this is dangerous.
Precisely. The dream logic overrides the rational knowledge, and this is where that spiritual seal, the Feng Yin, starts to become almost physical.
Physical, how do you mean?
The sources, especially, the Taoist and Kabbalistic ones, they explore this idea that the physical body itself acts like a kind of prison because it's the lowest frequency, the densest form of energy.
Okay, the densest energy.
Right, and that density explains why spiritual repair and growth can feel so incredibly difficult, so slow. The texts draw this really sharp contrast between how slow and hard it is to fix the physical, material body, think broken bones, illness, versus how quickly you can potentially affect the higher frequency energy body. The meridians in Chinese medicine or the chakras.
Okay, like the acupuncture example.
Exactly, that's perfect. You break a bone, it takes weeks, months maybe, because you're fixing dense, low-frequency matter.
Right.
But acupuncture can sometimes relieve pain almost instantly. Why? Because it's working on those higher frequency energy channels. The key, it's bypassing the slow material level.
So the speed of repair is kind of inversely proportional to the density of the thing being repaired.
You got it. The soul, the spirit, the Yanshen, when it's free, it's vast, it's quick, it can seemingly transcend time and space. But the body, being the lowest vibration, is the anchor, the limitation. It's the spiritual inertia that helps keep that seal in place.
And this connects to that reversal of perception you mentioned.
Yeah.
The enlightened person seeing the material world differently.
Yes, the Zhuangzi story, dreaming he's a butterfly.
Right. Am I Zhuangzi dreaming I'm a butterfly? Or a butterfly dreaming I'm Zhuangzi?
Exactly. The wise person, the sage, sees the material world as fundamentally illusory, like a dream, temporary, unstable.
While most of us, the common person,
We see it as the absolute solid reality. It's a complete flip, Heibai Dian Dao, black and white reversed. What we think is solid fact, the enlightened see as vapor.
some of the ancient rabbis said something similar, didn't they? About the upper world being inverted.
They did. That status here means nothing there, and the unknowns here might be spiritual giants there. It demands flipping your whole perspective.
Which is a great segue into that Taoist concept of reverse growth, Ni Sheng San.
Yes, and it's not just about, finding the fountain of youth or physical immortality.
It's more profound than that.
Much more. It's about reversing the spiritual decline, shedding all the rigidity and the distinctions we accumulate as we get older.
The Fenbai Zixin, the discriminating mind.
Right. Taoist internal alchemy looks at the infant as the ideal energetic state. Why? Because they haven't developed that strong, judging, comparing, discriminating mind yet. They're open, receptive.
So the goal is to get the life force, the qi, flowing back upstream. Nizi liu.
Exactly. Instead of just flowing downstream, which signifies aging, decay, spiritual hardening.
So if the body gets stiff and rigid as we age,
That's just the physical reflection of a soul that's become rigid, opinionated, maybe arrogant. The sources really suggest that spiritual inflexibility leads directly to physical inflexibility.
so practices like yoga or Tai Chi, it's not just about stretching the muscles.
It's about returning the soul to that soft, pliable, non-judging state of original innocence. If the body manifests the soul, then the body's decay is just mirroring the hardening of the heart.
Okay, so that hardening of the heart, that brings us right into the core mechanism of entrapment, doesn't it? Where the seal gets really cemented.
Yes. This is the fundamental, often agonizing gap we talked about earlier. The gap between the brain understanding something intellectually
Knowing the truth.
and the soul, the heart actually embodying it. The difference between intellectual grasp and embodied realization, or zhengwu.
That's the crux.
It really is. Think about that prophetic image from the Old Testament. I will change your stone heart into a flesh heart.
The stone heart. Rigid. Closed off.
Incapable of true feeling, true transformation, and according to Taoism, it's dominated by the Shishen.
Let's unpack that, the Shishen, the discriminating mind.
Essentially, yeah. It's like the ego's operating system. It relies on the senses, the 7 orifices they talk about. It takes over when we're spiritually asleep, when the true spirit is subdued.
So the Shishin is the hijacker.
That's a great way to put it. It hijacks the emperor, meaning it dominates the Yuan Shen, the true original spirit. How? Through the constant flood of sensory input and all the accumulated baggage prejudices, karma, what they call yi bao.
And this creates a kind of thick spiritual callus.
Exactly. A blindness. You can read every holy book ever written, memorize every sutra, but if the heart is stone, the truth just bounces off, it can't be absorbed, the soul remains untouched.
Which explains that paradoxically started with brilliant people, well-read, studying everything, but their lives are still a mess.
Their brain knows, but the soul isn't playing ball. It simply refuses to comply because it can't feel the truth.
And because of this stone heart, this leads to something really counterintuitive in the sources, a critique of things like the manifestation law.
Ah, yes. This often surprises people. The texts suggest that trying to manifest abundance can actually deepen poverty.
That feels backward, though. How can focusing positive energy on wealth make you poorer?
Because think about it, if the subconscious heart, the deep soul level, is fundamentally vibrating with scarcity, lack, and fear.
The stone heart's frequency.
Right. Then your conscious attempt to manifest wealth is just wallpaper over rotting plaster. The real signal being broadcast is fear and lack. So the universe, or reality, responds to that deeper frequency.
So the external effort gets sabotaged by the internal belief. Pa shen mei lai shen mei bitu. What you fear is what comes.
Precisely. You fear debt, you focus on not having debt, but the core energy is debt, so you attract more debt. The conscious affirmation gets totally drowned out by the heart's true low frequency of fear. It's like putting on a performance, but the foundation is rotten.
Wow. Okay.
And this fits perfectly with that Russian idea, the pendulum theory.
Right.
If you attach an over-craving to something, an excessive desire, an over-attachment, like making wealth itself an idol, you create this huge energy imbalance. It's like you're pulling way too hard in one direction. And the universe, seeking balance, has to neutralize it. Your intense focus on getting that specific external thing actually becomes the counterforce that pushes it away.
So the craving itself ensures you don't get it. That ties right into idolatry, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the sources give this really serious warning about a subtle spiritual trap, where religious knowledge itself becomes the new idol. It stops being a path and becomes a weapon for the ego.
So the Torah, the sutras, the commandments, they can become poison.
For the undeserving, yes. Or maybe better put, for those whose hearts aren't ready, whose hearts are still stone. They use the divine law not for transformation, but for self-righteousness, for judging others.
To prove they're better.
Exactly. They build this subtle, insidious spiritual ego. It's called the cultivation sickness, Shu Dao Bing. They look pious, they know all the rules.
But inside, nothing has changed.
They're accumulating discipline, maybe accumulating knowledge, sure. But they're feeding the exact same hard, judgmental ego they had before they even started the path. They're walking, as the proverb says.
There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death.
That's the one. And it's a chilling warning, especially for those who seem outwardly spiritual or righteous. If there's hidden pride, hidden attachment to the form of the practice rather than the essence.
They're using the Shishen, the discriminating mind, to try and conquer spirituality itself.
But the Yuan Shen, the true spirit, stays locked up, trapped by that subtle pride. It's a dead end, a death road.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and look at the spiritual battlefield itself. You hear a lot about things like the root chakra, or in Kabbalah, Yesod, foundation, security, stability. And people often assume, look at someone hyper successful, a billionaire tech founder, whatever. They must have a really solid open foundation, right? All that material success.
But the source material really challenges that assumption head on. It forces us to ask, what does safety or stability truly mean?
Okay.
If you look closely, often behind the public facade, many of these incredibly wealthy or powerful people suffer from deep emotional wounds, chaotic relationships, extreme volatility.
So the material security is there, but maybe not inner peace.
Often the material success is achieved through relentless control, driven by a deep lack of inner peace. The suffering, the chaos in their personal lives, that's the xianying, the clear reflection or manifestation of that inner brokenness, that inner fear.
So wealth doesn't automatically equal a stable root chakra.
Not at all. True stability there is about a fundamental trust in existence, an inner security that knows you're supported, regardless of your bank account. Often, the external wealth is just a compensation, a way to paper over deep internal fear and insecurity.
Like Adam and Eve hiding their shame.
Exactly. The broken relationships, the obsessive need for control, the underlying survival fear that's the modern echo of that ancient spiritual trauma, trying to cover the inner lack.
And as we move Digamos up the system, the traps get even subtler.
Exponentially more subtle, which is why the sources point us towards what you could call the ultimate spiritual hazard map. The Shurangama Sutra's discussion of the 50 skanda demons, the Wuxi and Mo.
50. That sounds intense.
It is. It's this incredibly precise catalog of all the ways advanced practitioners can get tripped up, how their own progress can become the source of their downfall.
How so? What's the core warning?
The core warning is that even genuine spiritual experiences can become the new idol if you cling to them.
For instance,
Say a practitioner achieves a state of deep meditative bliss, samadhi. Or they have a profound experience of emptiness, Kong. Amazing experiences, right?
absolutely. Transformative, potentially.
But if they then cling to that experience, if they identify with it, think, I have achieved emptiness, or become attached to the feeling of bliss.
Then the experience itself becomes the new chain, the new ego trap.
Precisely. You cannot idolize the void. If the goal is detachment, becoming attached to the feeling of detachment is the ultimate spiritual irony.
So these demons, they aren't necessarily external beings.
Not usually in the way we picture them. They're more like subtle distortions, perversions of psychic energy, twists in consciousness that arise from insight mixed with ego.
Do you give another example from the sutra?
Sure. One skanda demon involves gaining some minor psychic ability, maybe hearing things, seeing lights or visions, and immediately concluding, this is it, I'm enlightened.
Jumping to conclusions.
Big time. The practitioner then gets obsessed with these phenomena, maybe uses them to impress others or gather followers, and completely derails their actual journey. They mistake the signpost for the destination.
The shortcut trap.
Exactly. The sources constantly contrast that with true, patient, often laborious cultivation, what they call Yanghao Ren Jing Qi, nurturing the vast upright energy. It takes time, discipline, virtue.
Versus trying to force the doors open quickly.
Right. Those quick fixes, maybe trying to connect with external spirits, Shiling, or even misusing certain substances, they might give you a momentary glimpse, like lifting a corner of the veil.
But there's a cost.
A massive psychic cost. Because the heart hasn't been purified, the experience often leads to dependency, psychic damage, maybe even possession in extreme cases. The light isn't generated from within, it's borrowed, and the interest rates are astronomical.
And this leads right into the warnings about false authority figures, the arrogant practitioner, the Aoshi.
Yes. And in our current age, the celebrity guru, the influencer master, the sources are very clear. Beware the Aoshi.
The arrogant practitioner, what defines them?
They've often achieved something, maybe some initial results, maybe they can perform small miracles or have genuine flashes of insight, enough to convince themselves and others. But because there's hidden pride, Aoman, that hasn't been dealt with, that very success attracts lower frequencies, the shadow energies, the yinmo. They become, often without knowing it,
containers for evil.
right?
Working for the shadow.
That's the term used, yes. Their spiritual ascent was built on ego, not humility, so it's fundamentally unstable. The texts are brutal on this. Even the tiniest bit of arrogance can completely undermine decades of hard practice.
Like crossing a single log bridge. One slip.
Wanji Bufu, 10,000 calamities, no recovery. It demands absolute, constant vigilance against that inner pride.
So discerning a true teacher becomes absolutely critical.
Paramount. And the sources give that timeless image. The true teacher is just a finger pointing at the moon. Meaning, their job is to point you towards the ultimate reality, the Tao, God, the truth. But they are not it. A true teacher always pushes the student to look at the moon, not get fascinated by the finger.
They encourage independence, dropping the crutch.
Always. They never demand worship of the finger, of their personality, their authority. If someone insists, you must listen only to me, I have the final truth, I am the enlightened one.
That's the biggest red flag.
According to these texts, yes, because the true master points beyond themselves, empowers the student to find the truth within, to connect directly with the source, the Tao. The focus is always on the message, never just the messenger.
Okay. We've talked a lot about the traps, the dangers, the illusions. How do we actually do it? How do we finally break that seal?
Well, the path of precision described isn't about adding more, building more. It's about subtraction, continuous loss.
The Taoist idea, Sun yu sun, loss, and then more loss.
Exactly, which is so counterintuitive to how we usually operate, right? We think wisdom is about accumulating knowledge.
Learning more, getting smarter.
But here, true wisdom is about actively unlearning. Unlearning the lies, the illusions, the prejudices, systematically dismantling everything the ego thinks it knows. Pochu Pianjian, breaking through prejudice and fixed ideas.
Okay, but I have to ask, isn't that incredibly risky? How do you know you're unlearning lies and not just becoming spiritually lazy or deluded?
Yeah.
How do you stop the Shishen from hijacking that process and convincing you that doing nothing is enlightenment?
That is the critical question. And the sources are absolutely emphatic on this point, this unlearning, the sun yu sun, this path of subtraction. It can only work, it can only be safe after.
After what?
After you have rigorously gone through the initial phase of active effort, the Yu-Wei.
You can't skip the hard work.
You absolutely cannot bypass it. You must first diligently establish virtue, cultivate self-control, practice the basics, discipline, concentration, wisdom, jidinghui. You have to build a solid foundation first.
So if I haven't done that groundwork, haven't purified my conduct, haven't gained some measure of self-mastery, then trying to jump straight to effortlessness or unlearning?
It's just self-delusion. You fall right into the traps, the yin-mo phenomena we talked about. You mistake laziness for wu-wei.
You have to earn the right to surrender, in a way.
Yeah.
Generate the positive energy through effort before you can safely let go into effortlessness.
Beautifully put, yes. And to emphasize the kind of rigor needed in that initial Yue phase, the sources use that powerful analogy from the Old Testament.
The Israelites in Canaan.
Yes, specifically their failure to fully conquer the land, leaving pockets of Canaanites behind.
And that symbolizes
The absolute necessity of inner conquest. It means you must have zero tolerance for your own internal weaknesses, what the texts call the Jinmo, the heart demons.
greed, pride, self-pity, laziness, dishonesty.
All of it. Any little bit you excuse, any small flaw you leave unaddressed, thinking, oh, it's just a small thing. It's like leaving those Canaanites in the land.
It will grow and cause problems later.
Infinitely magnified problems, that little bit of uncleared vice, that pocket of resistance, it festers. And later, when you're reaching for higher states, it will rise up with amplified power and attempt to destroy your entire spiritual structure from within.
So showing mercy to your own character flaws today means they come back to sabotage you tenfold down the line.
Total destabilization. The internal enemy requires absolute precision and commitment to remove. This is why they say spiritual transformation is more precise than launching a rocket.
Wow.
It demands a level of radical self-honesty that is incredibly hard to maintain because the Shishen, the ego mind, is a master of self-justification. It will always try to rationalize keeping those Canaanites around.
So ultimate success then, breaking the seal. It requires returning to that state, the Taoist's prize.
The soft state of the infant, yes.
Yeah.
Utterly humble, pliable, open, without the rigid judgments and distinctions that the Shishen uses to rule us. Softness, receptivity.
And that leads to the final gate, the no-door gate, Wu Men Ji Man.
That's the idea. This ultimate gateway, the Zhong Miao Jin, Gate of All Wonders, it only opens when the practitioner has done everything they possibly can. They've exhausted all their own efforts, all their Yu-Wei.
They've hit the wall.
They've hit the wall, dropped every single preconceived notion about what God is, what enlightenment looks like, who they think they are, and they just stand there before the mystery in utter, absolute humility, Jinbei.
The moment of complete surrender.
That's it. When you finally truly let go and allow the divine, the Tao, the true heart, whatever name you use, allow it to do the final work. You don't force the seal open. It dissolves for you when you are truly ready, truly empty.
It's not an act of will at that point.
No, the will has done its part in the Yue stage. Now it's about yielding. The opening happens almost unexpectedly, outside the plans of the conscious mind. It requires the Yuan Shen, the original spirit, to finally displace the Shishen that held it hostage for so long.
Okay, so if we synthesize this incredible map from all these diverse traditions, it seems like a clear two-stage path emerges.
I think so, yes.
Stage 1, active effort. Yu Wei. Discipline, concentration, wisdom, Jidinghui, plus rigorous moral cultivation. Building virtue, doing the work, stabilizing the heart, turning that stone heart into flesh.
Absolutely, preparing the ground, building the vessel.
And then stage 2, kind of a passive effort or maybe active surrender. Wu Wei, achieved through deliberate letting go. Continuous unlearning Sun Zi Yu Sun. Systematically smashing every single idol, including your own spiritual experiences and insights.
Until finally the soul seal breaks. Champo Ling Hon De Feng Yin.
You know, the sources seem to leave us with this really provocative final thought, something that kind of flies in the face of, well, everything we're taught.
Which is
All our lives, our education, society, it teaches us to use our brain, right? Our analytical, discriminating mind, the Qi Shen, to learn, to succeed, to gain power.
that's the tool we value most.
Exactly. But the path to true awakening, as described here, seems to require us to deliberately close the senses, to turn off everything we think is right, to quiet that very mind.
That is the ultimate internal paradox, isn't it? The final battle. Because the most dangerous idol, the last one standing, is often our own deeply ingrained conviction that we are right.
It's our certainty, our knowledge.
Yes. This path demands that warrior spirit we talked about, that absolute commitment to inner honesty, that vigilance against pride, that zero tolerance from the Canaan analogy, because our rightness is the ego's final fortress.
So the question for the listener, for all of us really, is what if the path to ultimate clarity actually requires us to temporarily abandon the very tool, our sharp, critical, knowing mind that we rely on for everything else?
What is the real cost of clinging desperately to your rightness, to your carefully built ideas about spirituality, about God, about who you are supposed to be?
That decision, to be willing to suspend your own certainty even for a moment and trust something deeper, the heart, the Yuan Shen.
That's the moment the seal begins to dissolve. If you're not willing to put your cherished knowledge, your sense of being correct, on the altar, then the Qi Shen stays in charge. The seal remains intact. The unexamined assumption is always the last idol.
That provides an incredibly deep and frankly challenging framework for thinking about spiritual life. Thank you so much for guiding us through this really dense and complex deep dive. It's given us a lot to think about.
It was my pleasure. It's powerful material.
And to you, the listener, thank you for joining us on this exploration of the soul's journey home. We hope it sparks some insights for you too. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.